Good evening, everyone, and despite it being a rather somber day with the passing of Queen Elizabeth II, welcome to the Temple of Speed, the Autodromo Nazionale Monza, for round 8 of the Division 2 season. Now, 11 corners make up this 5.8-kilometer circuit, and as if the two DRS zones weren't enough for overtaking the long straight after Scarrain into Parabolica, make for exciting wheel-to-wheel action, as well as the Rettifilo and Raggia chicanes. Yeah, it's been a pretty interesting day. That part's for sure. It's obviously being an American and whatnot, I've not necessarily got a tie to the Queen that much. However, I think a lot of the drivers tonight representing England. Hopefully, that was kind of wasn't necessarily planned, but I know a couple drivers are doing it. But so, 30 seconds on the clock so far. It is downpouring here in Monza, very reminiscent of the F2 race here last season. Full wet on display. Before we begin, I will like to say out loud and officially, I will be doing a second lap moment of silence then for the Queen of England, who tragically passed away today. It looks like we will be having 7 seconds until I believe the lights will be turning on to go racing. Not quite sure we will be having formation lap on. I know the glitches have been fixed. However, we're certainly going to find out, as it looks like we are just still waiting for players to join. But it is raining, it is pouring. Old man, he happens to be snoring. Raining cats and dogs coming down in buckets. Insert metaphor here. We have 3, then 4, and then 5 lights here at Monza, and they are off. Now, who got the best start off the line? Race Day 2016 loves these wet weather starts, and I think he's gotten away well here as well. He's got light work down to the inside, maybe a little bit of contact being made. Perhaps it's going to be side by side going into that first corner between the AlphaTauri and the Aston Martin. Actually, it's Aston Martin and Mercedes right there. Jackson Altman trying to shove his way through up into the position, and it looks like, oh, Shariah Coleslaw. What has happened there? I'm not entirely sure. Dusty Lusky's picked up 3 seconds for corner cutting. I believe that was to perhaps avoid an incident. But as it turns out, Race Day does have the lead at this moment in time. Jackson Altman, light work, battling very close behind. It looks like, oh no, and Hightower has gone off towards the back. I believe Houdini might have a good look at that one. And we will be having a virtual safety car out on track in the early stages here at Monza. It was very chaotic first couple of corners then. Jackson Altman, I believe, has gotten around. No, in fact, the top 4 have stayed the same. Tiny's actually up 3 positions then. Clay is praying up 7, Adaltonian up 5. But it looks like perhaps some positions might still be swapping towards the back. What is actually happening here? A whole traffic jam happening here in Monza, going in between the 2 Lesmos, and, well, if I had an answer for you, I'd tell you, but I do not. Very interesting stuff here as the virtual safety car out on track. Race Day does have the lead of the race, and as I said, we saw it in Canada as well. He loves the wet weather starts, and he's proving that once again here. Out to the advantage over light work. Jackson Altman 3rd, Jose Miguel 4th, Tiny in 5th. As the field heads back around to Parabolica corner. And now, as we begin the second lap of the Grand Prix, we'll take this lap of silence to recognize the life and legacy of Queen Elizabeth II. And as we start the third lap of the Grand Prix, we've got the Red Bull of J.St., who has gone off, coming out of the second Lesmo, and we are now under safety car conditions. We saw then during that time, Grim Reefer and Clay is Praying were after quite the battle there, but that is a huge blow then for the Red Bull team, as that will leave them with only half a bit available points. We saw Adaltonian get into a little incident going through Parabolica, but now the safety car is out on track, and I'm not quite sure how long this rain will be lasting here in Monza. However, either way, it looks like we will be in store for one hell of a race, as it looks like the top 6 positions have actually stayed quite the same. We did have a couple drivers come into the pits. I believe Tiny on back did choose to make a stop, and I'm sure we might see more here, as that was quite a chaotic second lap as well. Some great racing we did see, but I will step aside for now until the end of the safety car. So the safety car will be in this lap. The field, for the most part, pretty much stays unchanged after the safety car. The top 6 positions have stayed the same throughout the race. Currently the biggest mover in the positive direction, Clay is Praying, up 9 positions, up to P9 then. Biggest mover currently on track in the negative position is Tiny, down to 16th in the Haas. Now, he did pit just a lap ago onto the safety car. For what reason, I'm not quite sure. All I remember is seeing him almost lose the car going through the Retofilo chicane before he made his pit stop. Yeah, it was quite something. As race day 2016 is going to be coming around the final corner now. Hopefully he has enough grip to get back up to speed here. And we are back to green flag racing here in Monza. Lightwork very close behind. He could make a challenge for this position after all. He might look for it here. Switching back and forth, trying to find a line down to the inside. Does he have it? It is a lockup for the Aston Martin, with Jackson Altman not far behind. The Alpine not far behind him. Very close contest here. Now, mind you, these wet tires will last you anywhere between 15 and 22 laps. So we will be seeing at least one round of pit stops. Now, Jackson Altman did have a peek momentarily to the outside of Lightwork then. Very close calls here so far. Lightwork really under pressure from Jackson Altman, more so than he is pressuring Race Day in front of him for the lead. It looks like Tiny and Houdini battling it out there. Clay is Praying and Grim Reefer once again. Well, Grim Reefer, I believe, has had somewhat of a spill, as he has now dropped a couple positions after battling with the Alfa Romeo of Clay is Praying. Now, those two were in battles not long ago. That was before the safety car came out on the second lap of the Grand Prix. Up ahead, Jackson Altman and Lightwork side by side for the second position as they now head into Ascari. Who's going to come out with a position here? Still side by side then, hopefully no contact, and yes, the Mercedes of Jackson Altman does walk away with that one, but Lightwork gets a much better exit of the corner, and I think he'll be taking it right back then as they head down this back straight here. Wheel to wheel, these two. You couldn't fit a piece of paper between them. And now Jackson Altman has stepped out of line. Then Adaltonian, I believe, has just spun off. That's coming out of the Ascari corner then. Race Day, meanwhile, all this battling is unfolding behind him, has took his gap up to 1.3 seconds nearly. Not that DRS would be in play, but that's one hell of a gap to overcome even in the best conditions rather. Jackson Altman to Lightwork still within 0.4 of a second. These two, I have a feeling, will be battling the majority of the day. Super Nanas back there, side by side then with Swee for the 10th position. Is he going to try to switch back down to the inside? No, he doesn't. In fact, PWR Grim Reaper behind him did not get a good exit of the corner. He is quite slow exiting. Here's Clay is Praying. Can he find the left side around Nicky 64 heading into the Rajia chicane? Is he going to have it? He'll have the line if he does. And no, he chooses to back out of it. But Nicky 64 goes quite deep into the first section of the corner. And on exit, Clay is Praying might have a good chance here going into the Lesmos. Let's see if he does. And no, not just yet. Nicky 64, despite making a couple of mistakes then, is defending nicely. Clay is Praying will have to wait to make that maneuver happen, but I feel it might be happening soon. He seems to have much more pace than the Aston Martin in front of him. He's got the slipstream and he's got battery percentage. Round the right-hand side he goes, and I believe the Alfa Romeo might just have this one all wrapped up before the corner, and he does. Nicely done then from Clay is Praying. That moves the Alfa Romeo team to both 7th and 8th. Meanwhile, Jackson Altman actually starting to slip back a little bit of Lightwork. Super Nanas back there battling it out with Swede. This is going down the straight before Parabolica. Super does have the inside, and he's using his battery as well. I'm afraid he's had to brake a bit early going into the corner that time as Race Day sets the fastest lap. I tell you what, Super has not gotten a good go through Parabolica corner then, as Grim Reaper has caught up and he's lost a lot of time to Sui ahead, nearly a second. Battery being used here for PWR. Grim Reaper heading down to the Redifilo chicane. Is he going to look for it down the inside? No, but I think he had the idea in his head. And now up ahead, Dusty Lusky and Jose Miguel were side by side then momentarily. I think perhaps Jose Miguel maybe has spun out there or something, because those two were very close together for a short amount of time. And now Jose Miguel and Soy Loco side by side. The teammate of Soy Loco way down to the inside, nearly making contact with his Alpine teammates. And that, my friends, I tell you what, we do love some good racing, but, I mean, you gotta be honest, that is quite the... I don't know if that was like a panic maneuver going that far over the corner, but mind you, Alpine currently sit 10th in the driver's standing. They're currently 5th and 6th. This would help them out a lot. Definitely go past Haas, perhaps Red Bull as well. They cannot be messing this one up. Man, oh man, this one has gotten interesting quite quickly. Meanwhile, Helgeland has found his way into the battle as well, but meanwhile, Tiny and PWR Grim Reaper, they're very close behind. Mind you, it was race... Uh-oh. What's happened there? Helgeland has gone off. Oh, and we do have yet another safety car on track. Yikes, and what has happened with our friend Helgeland there? He is gone off track in a very interesting position, and now we are seeing perhaps drivers come into the pits to make that pit stop in order to get that one change onto the other set of full wets that they will need. As you can see, they're going on. However, Jackson Altman, Soy Loco, Nicky64, Sui have all stayed out. And what I was going to say before we got cut off there was that, remember, Lightwork and Race Day did have that very entertaining finish to the Belgian Grand Prix. Remember, they came together a few times on that final lap. And so we're looking to see if Race Day can perhaps get some revenge on the Aston Martin here. And remember, Race Day still has not won a race this season. I believe, if I'm to be corrected, no, he has. It was at Imola he did win. But for the most part, this championship has been dominated as far as winning by NFS Lightwork, which is odd because how is Dirty Boy Jackson right there atop the table? Perhaps has he just been more consistent? Well, I wonder how he's doing in Division 1. Perhaps I can find out for us while I step aside here for the rest of the safety car. So the safety car on its way in this lap, and I'm afraid in my just generic stupidity, Dirty Boy Jackson is just not available to race today. He's not up in Div 1. He's actually just not been here. So this would be the perfect opportunity for anyone else to claim the lead of the championship. Dusty Lusky, that driver in particular now, assuming he can keep it clean throughout the rest of the Grand Prix. Only about halfway through within the next couple of laps here. Still a lot of action to be had. Here's Jackson Altman. He is in the lead. Nicky64 in second. Sui third. Oh, Jose Miguel has picked up a 5-second penalty. Severe collision then with Dusty Lusky. And just as I get done talking about Dusty Lusky keeping it clean, something has happened between him and Jose Miguel. And, this is one of those problems you face at Monza. The field just backs up, and that's really all there is to it. You can see the absolute conundrum of drivers right there. We saw this under the virtual safety car on lap 1 as well. Jackson Altman now, can he perhaps be getting up to speed before his tires drop off in temperature? And, I think he's already had a bit of a slide. Look at him go again. And this is what I was worried about. Jackson Altman, I think, has actually played the beginning of that safety car quite well, because everyone else, and being backed up like that, has made sure that their tires are ice cold. And now Race Day down to the inside of Lightwork to move up into the 4th spot. Sui in third, Nicky64 second, Jackson Altman the leader. Oh, Nicky64 has gone across the chicane. Jose Miguel picked up just 8 seconds then, all in the process of going through that chicane. Look at the Haas of Tiny around the outside, just picked up 2 spots in 1. That was brilliant then from the Haas driver. And now Nicky64 sliding back. Wow, something happened there. Nicky64 all the way into the grass. Has he got wing damage, the Aston Martin driver? It certainly seems like he does, because that, I'm afraid, shouldn't happen side by side between Race Day and Lightwork. These two side by side many times before, and Race Day is actually going to get by both of them then, going through the Raggia chicane. That was a great move, and that moves him back up into 4th. Jose Miguel, I believe, sitting on 13 seconds of penalty. for the 8 seconds that he's picked up this lap, as the two McLaren drivers battling it out now as they exit the corner. Jose Miguel's gone way wide, and now he'll be overtaken by both McLarens. I believe the Alfa Romeo as well, perhaps side by side as they head down the straight heading to Ascari. Jackson Altman, the lead he's gotten away to, 4 seconds and counting. Sui has taken second, Tiny third. Race day, I believe everyone else at the top has yet to pit, if I'm to be corrected. So everyone in the top, Tiny's actually pit twice, Nicky 64, so 3 drivers on the grid have yet to pit, Jackson Altman, Sui, and Nicky 64. So currently, as it stands, Tiny will be taking over the lead of the Grand Prix, if I'm to be correct. He's on 8-lap old wet tires as Nicky 64 has gone around there, followed by Houdini's had a mistake, as well as Jose Miguel is on his way into the pits. Big conundrums happening here. That is just simply what full wet Monza will do to you. But I will say the rain does seem to be slightly lightening up as Jose Miguel going and DNFing in the pits. That's not the day that Alpine has wanted, and any positions that they were going to make up in the Constructors' Championship, I'm afraid have all just gone out the window. I think he really should have stayed out on track. Just for the sake of his Constructors' Championship, they could have at least overtaken, I believe, Haas in front of them. Perhaps Red Bull as well. Grim Reaper's only 10th. Haas only has 1 driver on the grid as well. Interesting. Clay is praying now, hunting down Super in front of him. Soy Loco not far behind either. Clay is praying. We've seen Handsome oversteer these past couple corners. There he goes again, just tentatively getting back onto the throttle. You definitely have to be careful. Race day now, he's within 4/10 of Tiny. This will be for the eventual lead of the Grand Prix. Once the 2 drivers ahead of Tiny pit, that being Sui and Jackson Altman. Mind you, Jackson Altman out to nearly a 6.5-second lead, and I believe the safety car's only been gone for about 2 laps now. What a drive so far it's been for the Mercedes driver, but how long will it be able to last? Now Tiny's going to look around Sui here. Down to the inside, through Parabolica he goes, and he's able to make the move happen. Race day not far behind. Can Race day perhaps do both of them heading into the first corner? He's certainly going to look for it. He's on the throttle. He's going to look down to the inside of the Haas, and it's a double overtake perhaps for Race day going into the Redifilo chicane, and he makes it happen. Unbelievable stuff from Race day. Now he's made, that is, count them, probably the 2nd or 3rd highlight reel overtakes he's made in the wet conditions so far this season. This guy is just incredible. As Lightwork and Tiny side by side here, this being for the 4th spot as they go up into Raja, and Tiny's going to let him have it for now. Tiny, though, still not far behind, but what a maneuver it was from Race day. But mind you, all that battling is costing them even more time, as Jackson Altman has 7.5 seconds back to Race day in 2nd place. And Race day, mind you, despite having that advantage over Sui at the moment, which is about 2 seconds nearly, he's still got Lightwork and Tiny not far behind. And I tell you what, Lightwork is gunning for it. As Jose Miguel leaving the session, here comes Lightwork down to the inside, looking for it on Sui. Doesn't happen for now, but I think he's going to wait for Sui to make the mistake, and there he goes. And that was brilliantly done then from the Aston Martin driver. And now is it Tiny's turn to make the move around the Williams? He very well just might, but here comes Dusty Lusky. He's going to look to the right-hand side of the Haas in front of him, and no, he did have a look, but he didn't make it then. Dusty Lusky, mind you, after Jose Miguel's retirement, is the only driver on the grid with a 3-second time penalty. Everyone else, Jose Miguel had 13 seconds, and I believe that was probably the reason for his retirement. Here's Tiny, battery being used. Pretty much even Stevens on battery, although Tiny is actively using his to try to get around the Williams. Dusty Lusky is in play in this as well. I believe he did have half a look down to the Haas there, but didn't really commit to it in time. However, the Haas that Dusty Lusky has had catching up to this battle, something to be reckoned with. Oh, and Tiny's gone off. He's gone through the grass there, heading into Curva Grande. A bit of an odd place to go off track. And now Crane's going to take it around the outside, passing the grass perhaps. No, he doesn't. But he's still right there, side by side into the Raja chicane. He does back out of the position. I think he probably could have had that one, and it would have been his line as well. And now he's going to switch back down to the inside once more. Great patience and awareness from Clay is praying to pick up that 6th spot. We have a driver that's gone off behind, a Daltonian. It is Grim Reaper, who was spun out then. And this is the effect that I was talking about. Will Alpine I tell you what, they definitely could have made up 2 positions in the Constructors' Championship had Jose Miguel at least finished the Grand Prix, because now Grim Reaper has fallen down to 14th, and that is the only active representative of the Red Bull team left today. Clay is praying now within 4/10 on Dusty Lusky, but that gap starting to expand as Super Nina's had a bit of an off there. Oh, but the driver behind him has, and it's Adel Tonian into the wall on the inside as Jackson Altman setting the fastest lap. However, Adel Tonian saved the car. No, and he's lost even more of his front wing then. That was unfortunate there. We were along with the battle between Soy Loco and Super Ninas. Meanwhile, Dusty Lusky down to the inside of Sui. And look at that. Sui, I believe, has just lost that position then, as well as to Clay is praying. Just losing 2 spots in one, then Clay is praying. Can he find his way down to the inside? Sui's going to try to look it back around the outside. Clay is praying down to the inside on Dusty Lusky. Does he have the position? It's side by side through the Redafilo chicane. Sui is right there in hot pursuit as well. Will he be able to make up for it here? Mind you, he is on older tires. And no, he doesn't, but not yet. Still some time and still mistakes to be made. He's going to look for it within that slipstream of the Alfa Romeo in front of him. He might have some serious pace now heading into the Raggia chicane here, but he doesn't have anything for him just yet. Some excellent racing here being displayed by the Division 2 drivers. And ladies and gentlemen, we still have 10 laps to go this time by. Soy Loco wants in on this battle as well. It is realistically a 1, 2, 3, 4 car battle for this 4th position, considering Dusty Lusky is going to have the time penalty and will surely be relegated down to at least, I'd say, 8th or 9th. Here's Tiny. He's going to look for it here on Sui. Nothing to be had just yet, although he's within 2/10. So Tiny definitely filling up the mirrors of the Williams in front of him. Oh, and that's a mistake then from the Williams. He's gotten loose on exit of the Ascari chicane then, and Tiny was able to take the spot, and Soy Loco's going to cruise on past the Alpine as well, the Williams as well. And now Super, he wants in on this as well. He's going to file in behind the Alpine ahead of him. He's got 2 drivers ahead of him. Can he shoot the gap through the middle? No, that'd be funny if he did, though. 1:31.544 is the time for light work. That is the fastest lap. Sui now, I believe, will be going in to take his stop. Into the pits he goes. Maybe should have taken it during the safety car, because now he's at a huge disadvantage. Jiraiya Coleslaw then, picking up the position. He's now up to 9th. Clay is praying now, still within half a second on Dusty Lusky ahead of him. Just when I thought the rain was getting lighter, it certainly appears to be the opposite of that. The rain has stayed this consistent heavy the entire time. But see, this is what I'm interested in here. I'm not necessarily sure Jackson Altman is required to make that stop in the wet conditions. If he thinks he can go the full way on the wets, he probably could. Although the wets are only supposed to last you, 22 laps. He's currently up to 18 now. 17 rather, but realistically 18. And that gap, which was about 7 seconds not long ago, is now down to underneath that 7-second barrier, which means the drivers on the fresher tires perhaps are starting to catch up. Race Day being one of them. He's got over a 2.5-second gap to light work behind, and that has a 6.5-second gap for Dusty Lusky. Now he's also under pressure from Clay is praying. If we look at the gap from the leader on back, so Dusty Lusky currently sitting at 15 seconds behind. This would drop him to roughly, well, I'd say about 7th at this point. It is very close. He's going to need to do some serious work here. Here's Soy Loco. Can he find it around the Haas of Tiny? And Sui has been dropped down all the way to 13th after taking that pit stop. Quite late as well. I believe he probably should have done it under safety car, but he did gain positions for that amount of time. And maybe now with fresh tires, maybe perhaps he can catch back up. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. As it looks like Sui is getting around Grim Reaper them, who Grim Reaper in the pits, I believe, has he just made a front wing change? It certainly appears like that may be the case. Meanwhile, Soy Loco and Super battling it out here, as well as Clay's praying, still battling, hunting down the McLaren of Dusty Lusky. Mind you, he will be promoted to 4th if he can stay within that 3-second gap. But at this moment in time, Dusty Lusky will only be being dropped to the 6th position because Soy Loco, the gap from Clay is praying and Tiny back to Soy Loco, that's over 3 seconds. So Dusty Lusky at this moment in time will be only losing 2 spots. However, those are 2 spots he'll desperately need And as I said, he'll need to keep this race clean if he wants to really cement himself as a championship favorite here. Because Dirty Boy Jackson has not competed this week in any division, as previously mentioned. So if Dusty Lusky can pull together a good result, mind you, he's only about 15 points or less back to that of Dirty Boy Jackson. This is a very crucial race for that McLaren driver. But he is now under pressure from the Alfa Romeo. Clay is praying behind him. Clay down to his last 30% roughly on battery. Dusty Lusky ahead, down to about his last 50. So Dusty Lusky will be able to defend if he needs to. However, he's going to need to do that soon, because that Alfa Romeo has been catching up to him these past few laps. Meanwhile, speaking of catching up, Race Day has taken another second off that gap between himself and Jackson Altman. That gap severely coming down in time now. Jackson Altman exiting the second Raggia corner, the second Lesmo now. Race Day simply 5 seconds behind, entering the second Raggia. This one, second Lesmo. This one might be close. And Race Day, by the way, in case you haven't figured it out already, loves, at least it seems like, loves the wet weather driving. And he has absolutely done an amazing job today, making up positions left and right, really hunting down that win that he's been craving. Look at, once again, Race Day has lost that position, actually. He did start on pole. Clay is praying, however. Look at him, up 13 since the beginning of the race. That is a really good stat line there for the Alfa Romeo driver. And he's also hunting down the driver who will be taking the lead of the championship standings here today if all goes his way. Race Day 2016, the gap back to the leader of Jackson Altman within 5.5 seconds, and he's only got 7 laps to go. Clay is spraying now quite deep into that first corner then. Back to the McLaren in front of him. I tell you what, he is really closing in that gap, but he has not been able to find any sort of advantage on the straight line speed. And this is what we were talking about as well earlier, that Dusty Lusky is not afraid to take the route of having straight line speed. Look at this here. Now, despite that, Clay is praying actually did look quite faster at that moment in time. But let's see what he's got. Oh, a little bit of a wiggle there for Dusty Lusky. That perhaps hasn't helped him. Let's see who has the best speed going down the straight after the second Lesmo. Mind you, Clay is praying is in that slipstream range. Dusty Lusky, oh, he's right there as well. He may be taking this into the braking zone. We'll have to wait and see. Dusty Lusky, and see, this is where he starts to pull away in the straight line speed. He's up to about 320 kilometers an hour. And Clay is praying has actually quite matched him as well. In fact, I'd say he's about 2 kilometers an hour faster. So, Clay is praying right now might just have a go at Dusty Lusky here within these next few laps. He's within 3/4 of a second collectively each and every time, but he still has yet to find a serious advantage enough for him to be able to take that position. But mind you, whilst this is all happening, Dusty Lusky at this moment in time will only be losing the 1 position, despite even if Clay Spray overtakes him, because tiny 4.5 seconds back of Clay Spray, meaning that gap now collectively about 5 seconds. Got a yellow flag somewhere, didn't quite catch on to it. Clay is praying now within 2/10 then on the McLaren in front of him, but he's got again, he's got to find some way to overtake that Alfa Romeo. Meanwhile, Race Day, that gap now closing down within 4.5 seconds. Now, Race Day is definitely, and there's no doubt about this, he is certainly closing in on the leader of the Mercedes, but is he doing it fast enough to perhaps have a chance at the win? And look at that, that was a big slide there. Going into the first Lesmo, that has not gone well at all then for Race Day, and he's losing time significantly. Clay is praying right there, 0.3 of a second to the McLaren in front of him. And it's been that way for the better part of 5-6 laps now. Could he perhaps have a go this time, maybe going into Parabolica? We'll have to wait and see. Into Ascari now. Clay is praying, braking much before the corner than Dusty Lusky. That's certainly what it seems, at least. Drivers even Steven on battery percentage. Literally even. At about 25% the both of them. Dusty's gone back up to 28, but still. And look at Dusty Lusky taking the wider corner through Parabolica. Then Clay is praying down on the inside, but it's not been able to help him. Light worked the fastest lap, well, whatever it was. He's 2.7 seconds back of race day, and race day has finally clawed back that 0.3 of a second he lost on that last lap, but still, he's running out of time. Only 5 laps to go. Meanwhile, let's take a little bit of a look back. Shariah Coleslaw, he's starting to reel in Super in front of him. Mind you, Super had that grid penalty at the beginning of the race for a collision with whoever it was during qualifying. I'm not quite sure, but that did hinder him 5 grid places, and tell you what, he's up. Well, he's up to 8th now. That's 9 positions to the good for him. .5 of a second for Clay is praying to hunt down Dusty Lusky. Killer XL went from P18 to P5, it seems, during the Division 1 race. That's good news. Aero Racing Design got a puncture at 75%, so the Division 1 race wrapping up now. Lancey on the podium, good for him. But still, 24th lap of the Grand Prix now. Does anyone have anything for Jackson Altman? Oh God, what if a safety car came out here? We've had a share of the safety cars coming out at very inopportune times in this game. We saw it, actually, as a matter of fact, on Tuesday during F2. We've seen it in other leagues. And that actually happened. Actually, it's funny, we were talking about Shariah Coleslaw's league earlier. We saw a battle between him and El Majacco, Scornsey and El Majacco at Singapore. Now, Scornsey led pretty much every lap of the race, but they had a safety car, and it came in with about 2 to go, and El Majacco passed him for the win. And funny enough, this past week at Miami in that league, that same sort of situation happened, except Scornsey was the one in second, and he took the win away from Majacco. So, I gotta say, safety cars come out at unpredictable times. It's almost like they looked at, Clay is praying. Well, I tell you what a way to save the car then. That was dangerously close, and I don't know, it must be something about being an Alfa Romeo driver and being able to hold on to the car nicely, because that is exactly what he's done. Very reminiscent of Zhou Guanyu at Monaco this past year. Man, that could have ended so poorly, and just as we were talking about inopportune safety cars, that very much could have been one. But now that really has, well, it's not locked up 4th position for Dusty Lusky. However, I gotta say, he is starting to pull out a gap on Clay is Praying. It's up to about 1.5 seconds or more. And meanwhile, race day, now within 3.5 seconds on Jackson Altman with 3 laps to go. Jackson Altman needs a mistake here. Mind you, again, he's been on those wet tires for 24 laps. Those things have to be absolutely bludgeoned by now. Mind you, the game tells you they can only last up to 22 on this track. But it would appear that Jackson Altman is trying the Alex Albon strategy and just refuses to pit for those fresh sets of wet tires, and that is the strategy he has committed to ever since that second safety car. That is the strategy he's taken to Shariah Coleslaw and Supernitas, battling it out there, and I believe Shariah has just actually done a great overtake for the McLaren there. Nicely done for the Ferrari driver Shariah Coleslaw at their home Grand Prix. But at this moment in time, it is the Premier Italian of Clay is Praying and the Alfa Romeo. Ooh, Supernitas, wow, big slide then. He was able to correct it nicely. But now look at this. Has Dusty Lusky made somewhat of a mistake, because now Clay is Praying is within 0.5 seconds once more. But the battle at hand, the one for the win, race day, reeling in Jackson Altman here, but he's only got 2 laps left to do it. He needs Jackson Altman to make a mistake. Surely, those wet tires are not in any good shape for the Mercedes currently in the lead. Clay is Praying now, reeling in Dusty Lusky once more. He's going to have 2 laps to make that move happen. Mind you, Dusty Lusky won't be losing a position unless, well, if Clay is Praying gets around him, he won't lose an extra one. So, I mean, it really is Dusty Lusky will be losing the spot either way unless Clay is Praying makes some sort of heinous mistake within these next 2 laps. There's 0.7 of a second. I tell you what, that gap is expanding now. Race day has a 2.5 second gap back to Jackson Altman. My question is, how is Jackson Altman managing to find this much pace on 25 lap old wet tires? That is absolutely puzzling to me. You could not, yeah, you certainly couldn't get me to pull that off. But I will say, race day closing in that Mercedes now, 2.3 seconds the gap. Jackson Altman is tiptoeing his way around the circuit, and for good reason as well. Now, oh, race day, has he had a slide then? And he has. Wow, race day nearly lost the car coming out of the second Lesmo. And man, that almost ended catastrophically, and that has significantly hurt his chances of getting that win, but it's down to within 2 seconds now, just about. Clay is praying, he's within 5/10 on Dusty Lusky ahead of him. Race day is now within 2 seconds on Jackson Altman, but I believe it may be too little too late, unless Jackson Altman makes a mistake on this final lap, which, by the way, this division has seen its share of final lap drama so far this season. Final lap of the Italian Grand Prix here tonight for Division 2, the halfway point of the season. This is really getting into the business end of the campaign now, and Race Day 2016 is having himself a great result, but it's not going to be the win that he was hoping for. Now, he's also got light work not far behind him as well. Clay is praying now within 5/10 on Dusty Lusky for the 4th spot. But, I'm sorry, he's too far behind to make that move happen. Now, this is the critical thing here. We're going along with Jackson Altman. He's got to keep this lap absolutely clean if he wants the win. And I tell you what, he's driven so precisely so far today that I'm not too sure he's going to have a mistake to make here as he now heads through Sector 2. Entering and exiting the second Lesmo now. It's all up to him to finish this race cleanly. And I tell you what, he's done just that so far. It's been a great day for Jackson Altman. Oh, we've got the Aston Martin. I believe that's Nicky 64, who's had a small off then, going through Parabolica. Jackson Altman through Ascari now. Look at him tiptoeing his way through the complex. Race day. You could see him behind, but I'm afraid it's all too little too late for his battle back to Jackson Altman. Light work, in fact, not far behind race day then. He's within a second, but it is Jackson Altman making his way out of Parabolica Curve now. He started 3rd, and now he will be finishing in the 1st position. Jackson Altman coming to the line now will win the Italian Grand Prix. Race day yet again coming in a close second. Light work in 3rd. Does Clay at Spraying have a move here for Dusty Lusky in the final corner? Oh, it doesn't quite look like he will, but it will be Clay is Praying picking up the 4th spot, considering Dusty Lusky's 3-second penalty. Dusty Lusky, however, will only be dropping to 5th rather. Clay is Praying at 4th, Dusty Lusky 5th. Tiny will be coming across the line shortly to take 6th, unless Soy Loco can make something happen. Soy Loco nearly just lost the car then, but Tiny coming across in 6th, Soy Loco 7th, Shariah Coleslaw eventually 8th. And man, that was a very entertaining Italian Grand Prix. And I gotta say, oh, what's happened here? Race day has actually lost a considerable amount of his front wing. What is? Am I seeing things, or is that accurate? Because that I'm assuming is not supposed to be like that. Well, very exciting Italian Grand Prix, and you have to commend the professionalism of the drivers on the grid today, as they did, despite the very tricky conditions, pull off a very entertaining Grand Prix as Grim Reaper comes across the line 12th. It was a very, very exciting race here today, and Division 2 fully impresses once again. So after it's all said and done here in Monza, it is Jackson Altman taking the win, a commanding win as well. Race day in second, light work third, Clay is praying fourth. Fifth belongs to Dusty Lusky, sixth then belongs to Tiny, up from, was that eighth on the grid? That doesn't seem right. Soy Loco seventh, Shirai Coleslaw eighth, Super in ninth, 10th is Houdini, 11th Sweet, 12th Grim Reaper, 13th Anal Tony, and 14th Vicky 64. And then everyone else behind him, unfortunately, did not complete the Italian Grand Prix. Well, it's been an absolutely amazing Grand Prix here today. And next week, it's only going to get better as the league heads to Jeddah, Saudi Arabia for round 9 of the Division 2 campaign hotspot. I've had a wonderful time on the call, and we will see you next week in Saudi Arabia.